Tom. How are you doing?
Hello.
Good. How are you guys doing?
I'm good.
All right.
Did you guys have a good holiday? Stayed busy?
Well, I was on vacation. I was in Barcelona. I'm drinking Spanish wine.
She sounds like she's got the better life of all of us right now.
But the worst sound, I think.
Yes, where's your sound? I'm glad you pointed it out, not me.
I'm always saying that in the rehearsal room. Can you adjust the sound?
How am I sounding now?
Oh, there you go. Loud and clear. That's beautiful. Zubaida. Okay, I actually was pretty close, but I was talking to my friend Jacob, who plays in the band Children of the Sun. You guys did some shows together, and I told him I was interviewing you guys, and he was like, "You better get their names right, man." He goes, "You're terrible with Swedish names." I'm like, "I know, I'm horrible with like names, but you think with a last name like Delamont, you would figure I would be able to say people's names, but yeah, no."
But you're not French speaking, are you?
No, I'm actually from New Orleans. I was born and raised in New Orleans, and so it's kind of more like a like a Creole French that I'm, that's my ancestry. But I actually failed French twice.
Okay.
As many do.
It's a hard language. It's like one of the harder ones for me, but so I treated myself to I'm going to learn how to speak Swedish this year is my goal.
Very good.
Ooh, a lot of people say Swedish is one of the harder language to learn, but I'm not sure.
Well, I have friends, so many friends who are Swedish, and I'm like, it'd be kind of nice to know if I ever go visit them if they're saying bad things about me and I can't understand them.
A good start is watching some Swedish movies in subtitles.
Yes, yeah. I have a friend of mine, actually, is a guy who played drums in my band. He's from Puerto Rico, and he learned how to speak English watching Beavis and Butthead. So he said, unfortunately, every word I knew was a bad word, So you guys put out one of my favorite albums a couple of years ago, and I just got the advance of the new one, and it is fantastic. Like,
it's great to hear.
It is such a diverse collection of songs, and I've been a fan since I heard Root Jam years ago. And so, Siena Root is in like a top tier for me of like my favorite bands, and I feel like since then I've had the chance to watch Siena Root evolve and take on different personalities. And, you went from that kind of almost kind of psychedelic world music sound and started to kind of adopt more of like a rock sound. But I feel like with this new album, you've managed to kind of pull everything, that Siena Root is about. Like, how was it? Was that like a conscious thing, or did it just like, was that something that you planned, or did it come natural?
It's tough to plan everything, but some parts were, of course, of intention. At one point when we were rehearsing, we thought, well, this might be an all acoustic album. But then along the way, we found that these electric songs are very strong and they fit together with these other acoustic songs. So let's not limit ourselves to doing just an acoustic song, acoustic album, but incorporate everything if it fits together. What do you think, Zubaida?
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, but I also think I think it's one of Siena Root's biggest, how do you say, USPs, if you know what I mean. It's ever changing, from each album, and so I think it kind of falls in line with that but still being unique enough and still having that Siena Root lens to it. So I mean, in that sense, I do agree that it's, you know, it's an ever changing, but then at the same time, it's hard to say, because we always, in my case at least, I mean, I get propelled by you know, things that happen in my life. So I don't actually necessarily think like, how is this going to fit into like a Siena Root vibe? It's just, you know, Siena Root is the platform where you get to express your musicality. And then for this record, it happened to be this. There's a lot of themes that's, you know, current, at least for me, with, you know, what was going on at the time with the pandemic and a lot of that stuff, for example.
So that was one of the things I was definitely interested in, was because talking to some of my, you know, my fellow musician friends, so many of them kind of took the pandemic in different ways, like it had affected them different ways. But one of the things I was the most happy about was to hear how many of my friends were almost kind of like inspired, because they were like, as much as it sucks to not be able to go out on the road and play, they were like, we were kind of forced to like do something. You have to be creative, you had to write, maybe, you know, they took time to make music that they knew they weren't going to get an opportunity to play live. So that energy went into the creative process, you know? So did you guys kind of find that the same way?
Well, in general, it's a good thing with tough times when you talk about creativity. At least for me, and I think many people, that you need a little bit of heartache or a little bit of trouble to get into a creative mood. But well, as a group, I don't know if we also got into this. How do you say? When time stands still, that really a little bit like nothing was happening. Also, it's a balance. It was troubling not to meet the audience.
Mm-hmm. So did they? So Zubaida, did you? I mean, you're such a dynamic performer, and you have, you know, other projects and stuff that you do. As I've been a big fan of yours, you know, since hearing about you. And like, how hard was it for you to all of a sudden be removed from the live music world?
Oh well, it was. I mean, we specifically in Siena Root, but I think me myself, I was still working as a bartender at the time. It was kind of jarring, and then I also got very sick very early during the COVID times, and so I had to remove myself from seeing people for quite some time. And of course, in Sweden, we didn't have as strict lockdowns as a lot of other countries had. But as I understood it, it was so I wasn't necessarily out in society and feeling the effects of that. I was just at home, like eating ice cream every day. But that was extremely boring at the same time. You know, like I would wake up every day and be like, okay, am I going to be better today? Because I had one of those symptoms where you had like pressure on your lungs, which was kind of one of the early symptoms that went away later into the as COVID progressed and there was new variants and all that. Mm-hmm. So, and also it was so early that we didn't have testing, so we didn't know how long you would be contagious. You didn't know how long, you know, you were supposed to incubate until very much later. I think we knew in December maybe, like exactly the, you know. Or not exactly, but at least you had more of an idea, and the tests started coming out, and you could actually, you know for sure whether or not you had COVID in another way. So it's it was also, you know, when I finally got a little bit better and I came out, this was somewhere in the middle of summer. It was like, you know, you came out to like a dead society. People think that like Sweden, we had no rules, but the thing about Swedish people is that we trust our governments. Not that our government is pure or anything like that, but it's very common for Swedish people to like the corruption levels in Sweden are very, very low.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people, there were recommendations that everybody followed. So at some point during the night, people wouldn't go out. There weren't any people to see. So and that was kind of jarring. You're like, how am I gonna make a living,
right,
doing what I do? But yeah, I mean, so it was a mixed bag, because I was sick, and then coming out to people already adjusted, and I was like, okay, so this is the new normal, I guess. We'll see. But we actually played more so than many other bands with Siena Root, I think. Love, you have to correct me. We were away for a couple of those shows in Germany, or all these like open air shows when they did a lot of the live streaming at some point, right?
Yeah, we did a few shows, but fewer than we usually do.
Well, so now that we're kind of, it's become, I guess in our world now, it's a new norm, like it seems to have kind of eased off, but now like it's going to be just another sickness that we're going to have to deal with, and because, like the cold or the flu or whatever. Did any of this like stress or the kind of like hardship of it all play into the songwriting?
I think few songs are really heavily inspired by this. Yeah, right, Zubaida?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple lyrics for. There's one song on there when you talk about like actually being bored out of your mind. There's a song called the Procrastinator. And a lot of the lyrics
procrastinator.
Yeah, exactly. Professional. It's very much inspired by just sitting home and being, bored out of your mind and being like, should I be doing something better? Oh yeah, I can. So now I'm a professional procrastinator all of a sudden. This came from that kind of way of thinking, and then also I think it's the single. Also. Yeah, the Coincidence of Faith.
Okay.
Right. It's that one. A lot of the lyrics came from when in the beginning when I got COVID, and I had a lot of anxiety, and I really thought that I would die at some point. So it's actually really from a time when I was like, I wasn't sure that I was gonna make it, and I was like, really, is this my time? Has it come already?
It's like too soon,
Yeah, exactly. Like, I wasn't really ready to say goodbye, but it's but thoughts of death when you reach them, or when you first come upon it and you realize how fragile life is, that is absolutely. I think a lot of lyrics in music history is inspired by people's fear of death, of course. But it's one of my first time as a songwriter where it really came from a place of genuine, fear.
Especially even like looking back on some of the most classic, songs of the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. Like some of the greatest music was born out of bad times and disaster and trouble. I mean, like, if it wasn't for Vietnam, we wouldn't have had 3/4 of the great, or a third of the great music we had from the 60s. Do you know what I mean? So it's, so now moving forward, is that something that like when you hear that song, it's good, or when you perform that song, you're going to kind of feel like in touch with that idea of like, at one point you really had to kind of like ponder your mortality,
Well, I don't know how it is for the rest of the guys. I think everybody know, for me, where the inspiration for that song came from. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a bittersweet thing as a songwriter when you realize that, of course, it's going to become a song that's connected to the past. But at the same time, it's going to be really fun to see how it reaches people out there. Because at the end of the day, that's like what music what music is for, you know, inspiring people, making them feel like they're seen in a song or feeling represented, or, you know, so I'm excited about that. But I'm also, you know, it doesn't make me feel bad, if that makes sense. It
Yes,
only,
right.
it's, I'm really happy that my way of expressing myself through music has, you know, I mean, it's like a milestone, you know, that I can always remember, in a sense. You know, it's even better than like writing a diary. It's like, you know, it actually is something that, you know, other people can take part of also, you know.
I really like that song. I think that song is excellent, and I'm really happy every time we've played it live. I think it works very well live as well.
Well, so kind of touching back, kind of like what I was talking about with just the diversity of Revelation was, you know, and again, like I said, just to repeat myself, like I've been a fan of Siena Root for a while, and to kind of hear like a progression, it's not even so much that you're leaving behind your thing, but it's like there's a progression of like, okay, this is where Siena Root is right now. Like we're in a rock mood, so we're gonna make a fucking rock record, you know, or like we're in a blues mood, so we're gonna make a blues song, you know. But like what I really got out of this album was, like I said, there was like seemed to be elements of Siena Root's, you know, past, but then also working its way forward with Zubaida. This also feels like it's a very stable unit now. And how has that played for, like, you know, I mean, you know, Luva being in the band for forever, basically, like, how does it feel to have that stability now as far as like a lineup goes?
What's the question for me?
It feels great. Yeah, that was
Yes.
for you. I'm sorry. I
I
should
So-
have redirected that. Well, let me add to that. Is that like, you know, how does it, so for having such a stable lineup now, do you find that it takes like a lot of the guessing out as far as like, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this and whatnot? Like,
I like to put it like this. When you perform a concert, I think the ideal show is 70% structured and prepared, and then 30% improvised.
mm-hmm.
I think that's the best mix of it, something like that, 70-30. And when it comes to organizing a band, it's always nice with the new blood and some new ideas that comes into the band, but it also requires a little bit of stability.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, in the long run, if you keep on going just the same people, you have a problem with renewing yourself and being creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not every band that can do what AC/DC does, like write the same song for 20 albums. It's a tricky thing, and many bands don't succeed with that. And I think this is something that Siena Root has an advantage. But I'm very happy now. Also, this album features guest musicians like Stian on sitar and Lisa on flute, and Eric also joins on the clavinet.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's really a healthy mix of stability and inspiration and creativity.
Because I always kind of thought of Siena Root as almost like a collective of sorts, you know, like
Yeah, in during some periods it's been really like that.
And I guess in some ways too, as a musician, like if I could experience that like in a collective of sorts, like that to me seems like such an exciting way to make music, because kind of like what you said is that the creativity, instead of kind of being encapsulated by one lineup and you're just kind of making the same music going forward, that having a revolving door of musicians kind of welcomes in new sounds and new influences and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the the best way with music is when you have some people meeting, and those two people create something that becomes three together, not two. It's something more. The tension between the ideas develop into something nobody would have thought of. That's the best way, I think.
Zubaida, you coming into the band, I mean, you're talking about a band who at the time when you joined had probably like 15 years under their belt already. Like, coming in, was it hard for you to feel like I've got to make it? Was it kind of hard for you to feel like you had to make, was there more pressure on you, I should say, to feel like you had to go in and make your mark? Or were you just like, I'm just going to slide in here and do my thing?
Ooh, hard question. I mean, both yes and no. When I joined the band, I didn't know that I would be playing as much keys as I'm doing now, for example. So that's been quite the journey. When I started when the initial conversation started happening, Erke was still planning on playing with the band, and then he found out that he was becoming a dad, and that kind of had its period of time before we landed in me starting to play keys, which is obviously I think that part for me has been more pressure surrounding, because when it comes to, I don't know, the only pressure I ever felt when it comes to singing with Siena Root is doing the songs justice. I don't think I've ever doubted my capacity as a vocalist in that sense, or a live performer even, but since I was also a fan of Siena Root for quite a long time before joining the band. I started listening to them when I was in school and stuff like that. So for me, it was when I started to get to know Love, when we started seeing each other in Stockholm, I was always starstruck when I was seeing it. It was very that, I used to listen to your band with my friends in a living room smoking pot, that kind of thing. So it's really funny looking back at it now. I mean, this is.
And you had to experience me close up.
And I stopped smoking pot. No, but I think smoking pot and joined the band, it would probably not be the same, So I think it was good that I was a little bit older and had time to do my own thing a little bit, and but so the only thing I've ever felt pressure about is being able to deliver the meaning of the songs and having them still be in a Siena Root kind of fashion, but also adding my stamp on it. But I'm that part I feel pretty confident about these days. The organ part, I think, since I still feel like it's new, even though I've been doing it for a couple years. But it's a big world, so you're always learning new things about what type of organs to play, how you can play it, what amps you can use, what cables are the best. For example, when we did a lot of summer touring. Now, if, for example, in Hertzberg, I was like, why is this organ sounding like it's out of key? Because the whole system is not run on electricity that's connected to a house or a ground. It's I didn't even know that this could happen. I'm just learning stuff as I go along, But it's one day at a time.
Well, Luva, how would you grade her? What kind of grade would you give her?
She's a natural talent, I would say.
He's so nice, isn't he?
Yeah. If nice just equals for politically correct, then you're absolutely
That's what they call it here. Actually in the South, here in Georgia, if someone says "Oh, bless your heart," that means "Oh, you are such an idiot." You know what I mean? So it's amazing how you can have these little twists on sayings, But
yes.
But actually, in listening to the album again, I'm so glad you mentioned Professional Procrastinator, because to me that was a new influence that I hadn't really heard in Siena Root yet. And I don't know how close I would be, but it reminded me a lot of the Glenn Hughes era of Deep Purple. When David Coverdale was the singer. it kind of had that
Okay.
Glenn Hughes vibe to it. Like the vocals were kind of over the top, but like really like punchy and soulful. And I really got that vibe out of that song.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I haven't thought about it.
Are you a Glenn Hughes fan, Zubaida?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's I don't think there's any era with Deep Purple and stuff that I don't like, actually. But I was actually I had the band Free in mind, actually,
Oh,
when I
yeah,
was
okay.
composing the melody, or like maybe like a Grand Funk Railroad kind of thing, you know, with following the melody, so to speak. But you know, you never know how it's going to come out at the other end. You know, you have your impressions, and then you try to, you know, figure out around that. So that was what was in my mind. But I really love that. You know,
That was probably my favorite song so far, but I've only heard the album like a few times. So I'm sure my favorite song will change in 2 weeks. So one of the things I did love about that song too, and you know, being that I'm a folk musician too, was that it definitely had like that, like a traditional vibe to it too, which to me was kind of another example of kind of pulling from that older, you know, like just a little older aspect of Siena Root with that traditional vibe.
Yeah, I think this album has a lot of resemblance to the first album, A New Day Dawning.
Yes. I was actually just listening to that one earlier. I'm trying to catch up on my Siena Root vinyl. So you guys need to reissue Root Jam because
it's been reissued.
Coming up.
Oh, is it coming up?
It's coming out. I think in March.
Okay, I'm watching that because I can't pay $150 for it on the internet, man. You know that's how much it's going for?
Oh, crazy.
People are so. I saw a copy on a record website called Discogs, which is where people collect their records.
I know.
You can trade and, you know, see each other's lists. I've seen it go for as high as $150, and I was like, I love Siena Root, but like, yeah, if they're not going to get that money anyway. So I was like, this seems to be the most I've actually heard about Siena Root, other than the fact that I know you guys from, you know, just in North America. Like this album seems like it's going to be getting quite a push. Is the demand there yet to get a Siena Root US tour? Or like, what are you guys thinking?
Hopefully. But it depends on so many things, that the political situation and the economy also.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's super difficult for even Europeans to get working visa for doing concerts there, and because to book the shows, they want to know that you're able to come into the country, and to be able to come into the country, you need to have booked shows. So it's backwards.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of like, you know, it's like you know, like I have a friend who's in a band in London, and they had a full North American tour booked that was supposed to start in October of last year and go from October to November, and they had the whole tour booked and everything, and like at the very last minute, they were denied everything, like the visas and everything. Like they were like, we had everything submitted so early. They were like, we, you know, and they kept telling them, oh, you guys are going to be fine. And I think he was just like it was like matter of weeks, and they were just like, yeah, it's not going to happen, you know.
But if you know some booker that is really good working with them, then please let us know, and we'll take it from there.
If anything, why don't you guys just fly into Atlanta, and you guys can crash in my basement, and we'll just jam here. That'll, you know. I can at least get 20 people out. I know that, you know. So.
I'll forward that. Okay.
You know, we'll feed you, give you beer, whatever you want. You know, I have edibles too, so you know. We can, you know.
Thank you.
Have a good time.
Thank you, Don.
Well, no, because like I said, I feel like the more I've watched and paid attention and followed Siena Root's career, I mean, especially over there, is that like you guys have grown to be such a just this powerhouse of a band. And I feel like America is suffering by not getting to see a band like Siena Root, like, I want my Swedish invasion, like kind of like, we had the British invasion with I want Siena Root and, Graveyard and Children of the Sun and everybody just to come over here and just like blow everyone away,
In your basement.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
We can live stream it.
That sounds good.
I'm actually friends with the guitar player from Graveyard, Jonathan Ram. And every time I talk to him, I said, man, if you guys are going to come to the States, just like pick up Siena Root and Children of the Sun and bring them over with you. And he was like, oh, I don't know. I can't make those decisions.
Boring.
Yeah, I'm like, what a dork. But so I mean, with that being said, like, as many tours and shows as you guys have done, like, who are some artists that you would love to share the road, go on the road with, that you could see would be, like a beneficial way to get Siena Root's music out to the masses?
We had some shows planned with Uriah Heep, but it never worked out because they wanted to do just without a support act. We're now considering doing a split tour with Rosalie Cunningham. I really admire her work.
She's a friend of mine. Yeah.
You're many friends.
Some of my favorite people. None of them live here. So all my closest music friends seem to be over there. But that would be a great bill for you guys to do something with Rosalie.
We'll see if it works out. So many things that need to fit.
You guys have already been out doing live shows. Like, have you been playing some of the songs off of the album live?
Yeah, we've been doing one or two of them at least. To try them out on audiences, and it's been they've been received quite well. So I mean, we're gonna do a couple Germany dates now in March, and then I think there's another tour being planned as we speak, maybe in May, right, Ove?
Yeah. And we have also a few dates around the release day in north of Sweden. And then we also have planned, just about to announce that premiere of the movie, Wheels of Revelation, on the 23rd of February. Mm-hmm. I hope we will be able to stream that one as well, but we will see.
I would love it. Now, will there maybe be a DVD release of that as well?
I think it will not be a DVD because DVD is so much on the way out. Disappearing now. It's only like Japanese and Germans and some in US.
Yeah, I pretty much just stream everything. I couldn't tell you the last time I bought a new DVD. Although I do buy some music DVDs because you can't stream all these old concerts and stuff, so but well that's great. Well, and then I guess one more thing is that after 20 years or so and all this music, how the hell do you guys make a set list? Like,
no, that's tough.
Well, I don't get involved, I can say that. Too long of a conversation. Jesus.
Yeah.
Time we go on when we're like preparing for a tour and deciding between which music we're gonna play. I love all the boys in Siena Root, but sometimes I feel like we have turned over every stone now. We have discussed every single song. Just tell me what to play so I can play it. It's too many good songs to choose from, and then everybody's like, maybe this one, maybe this one. It's like.
So with that being said, I have to ask you, what are each of your favorite songs to perform live? Like if you had to pick one particular one.
Louis, you start.
I think I could say that Dusty Roads is becoming one of my favorites, actually, from the new album. It has both some fixed parts and it has some open ends as well.
That is a great song. And what about you?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I always like one of my favorite Siena Root songs is "Summer's Old."
I love that song.
So good. I love the like the heaviness between that kind of stonery riff over to the super psychedelic kind of vibe to it, and also because it is quite open as well, but it has so many moving parts, but it's still like it's so good. But recently, I've started. We added a song that's a single called Mountain 2, I believe.
Okay.
And that one is really like, it's super bluesy and it's super heavy, but I really started liking it, singing it quite a lot. So that's what my...
There's a lot of room for singing there.
Yes.
You do that one really, really well.
Have you performed The Rat since Zubaida's been in the band?
We haven't performed it yet, but we are working on it. No, I think it's going to be added maybe.
Only rehearsed it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You got to get this together.
My memory is blurry.
I think every time I've heard The Rat, Zubaida, I always think about you for some reason, because I'm just like, I could totally hear you just like stepping up to just make that song your own.
Well, thanks. I really love that song as well, actually. So it's really fun that you mentioned it, since we're currently working on it. Yeah. Maybe we'll add a live version of it for you on YouTube or something.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, this is the only way I can see you guys is like on YouTube, and it's that part of technology that I have to say I do love, because this is the only way I've had the chance to live through the people that get to see Siena Root, and I've told my buddy Jacob before, I said, don't take it for granted that you guys get to have so many amazing bands that we don't get to see. Cause I'm not gonna lie, man, most American bands are terrible. Like I don't like American music very much. My wife actually said she wants to ship me off to Sweden at some point. She's like, because why don't you go over there for the summer and just follow all those bands around and just get it out of your system? And I was like,
Do it.
I'll hop on the bus with you guys and sell merch or whatever, man. I'll just do, Thank you guys so much for popping in and talking about the new album and the tour and all that stuff. And I am so excited for you guys. And this is, like I said, it's a great album. I've totally enjoyed listening to it. And, even with the incorrect song title, but no, you guys really put out a great collection of music. And as a fan, I couldn't be happier to just hear one of my favorite bands continuing to just make music that blows me away. It really does.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for those kind words. That's amazing to hear. We really love talking to you. We always do.
Well, I love talking to you guys too. And like I said, if I make it over to Sweden, get your couch ready.
Absolutely.
It doesn't take a whole lot to take care of me. I'm pretty low maintenance. Although I'm sure my wife would say otherwise. My wife would say he's a pain in the ass. Please take him. Just.
Or you bring her. I mean, I just moved to like a kind of a big place, and for the first time in my life, I actually have space to have a guest room. So you know what? Bring your wife if you want to. You get your own room.
I think she'd be more than happy to let me go for 3 months. Well, then Zubaida, you'll be who I stay with then, since we know you have the room.
No worries.
Luva, what did you say again about the reissue? Now is that like official, or should I not include that in the interview just yet?
It's official. It's official that it's gonna be a reissue. We're waiting for it, but the test press is approved, and
Well, that's going to be a really exciting thing, because to me that was my first introduction to Siena Root.
okay, that's a good introduction.
I still go back and listen to it, and I consider that to be, in my like top 10 live albums.
Wow, thanks.
Actually, I just wrote an article on my top 10 favorite live albums that I'm going to be posting soon, and Root Jam is in there. So
Then you can
Fantastic.
mention it's going to be a reissue. Huh? I'll let you know when it comes, and I'll ship it to you.
well, thank you guys again. Always, y'all are really such sweet people, and you're wonderful, and you make some of my favorite music. And please keep it going, and I'm going to keep the faith that you'll make it here someday.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you for having us once again.
I see the streetlights slowly bleach your soul. Said I was leaving here tomorrow for dying.